Morning chaps, how's it going? Hope everyone's doing alright, locked in their fucking houses. It's really is getting beyond a joke now, isn't it? I can't believe I haven't been to a pub for fucking 6 weeks. Anyway, rather than vanish down the coronavirus fucking rabbit hole again, I thought I'd talk about something a little different. I periodically go through my Quora account and delete anything that the fucking moderators collapse needlessly and then refuse to act on when I put an appeal in, because all the social media fuckers do this. Facebook, YouTube, Quora, Twitter, we all know fucking Silicon Valley's about as impartial as a fucking clingy mother at a baby's beauty contest, you know. An American boxing judge, if if the American fighter's going up against a fucking Libyan, take your pick. But they're not impartial at all, and they frequently collapse my answers. I appeal them, and then because there's nothing in there that's even remotely fucking controversial, they obviously sit on the appeal and don't do anything. They don't give you an answer and say, oh, we collapsed it because we think you're a fucking arsehole, or we collapsed it because you're a cunt, or, you know, or maybe be honest, like, well, I suppose that is them being honest, isn't it? If they told me that they hated me and I'm a cunt, I could accept that quite easily. But it annoys me when they just go complete radio silence and don't say anything at all. So yeah, after I tend to wait 3 months, and if they haven't moved on the appeal, I fucking delete it. And I came across this piece that I wrote. It was extremely popular, and in the case of over the period of about 3 weeks, it gathered 15,000 upvotes and was shared 40 times. Lots of people said, thanks for writing this. This is informative. This is great. She's fucking Swedish. This is important. I recommend reading this. So good. This is interesting. Yeah, well, Quora said that doesn't kowtow to far left, militant as fuck, open borders orthodoxy, therefore scum. So fuck you, it's getting deleted. And promptly deleted it. So I sort of edited a bit and reposted. But I thought I'd read it out because it was popular, and I think it's a fucking fair answer. You can let me know what you think. See if you think I'm being a fascist Nazi, and then I'm just going to riff on it a bit. So the question asked was, is Sweden being destroyed by immigration? Now, obviously, that's a very direct question. I said Europe is being destroyed by immigration, not just Sweden. Millions of those that have moved to Europe in the last decade have less than a high school education. They're mostly men at the absolute worst age, when they're at the most impulsive, most obnoxious, and most high energy. This is true. Anyone who's been 19 knows what it's like. You're a fucking idiot when you're 19. I was a fucking idiot when I was 19. When you're 19, you think you fucking know everything. Your dad tells you a load of stuff and you go, yeah, cheers, you old square. And then you do the exact opposite. Fuck everything up. And then suddenly it dawns on you when you're 38 and you go, the old cunt was right about everything. That's life. It's what we all do. I'm not judging anybody, but it's a fucking fact. Blokes, full of testosterone, cocky as fuck, the worst demographic, probably does all the fucking crime, well, 90% of it, is young, fighting age males. That's why they train you to look for fighting age males when you're out on the ground in fucking war zones. Ask the Israelis, they know what they're talking about. I continue. Christ, I would not advocate 1 million 18 to 35-year-old male high school dropouts from Scotland moving to Sweden in a short period of time, let alone a large group of men from a completely different culture, especially one that's noticeably different to that of Western Europe. That is a load of fucking hooligans from a Rangers and Celtic derby, as you can tell by the fact that there's a load of fucking blokes with green and white striped scarves and tops on, kicking the fuck out of a bloke in a blue shirt. Caption, Mr. Lovren, I found a splendid group of fellows we can import to run the meatball stand during midsummer celebrations. Yeah, fucking terrible idea. Try it. Import a lot of pissed Geordies to some pleasant shire in fucking Denmark and see how well they integrate. So, regarding the noticeably different to a Western Europe culture, I continue. a culture that often treats women and children in a manner that many secular agnostic Europeans find alarming. I recently read Douglas Murray's excellent book, The Strange Death of Europe, and I heartily recommend it to anyone with an interest in the subject. As a gay man with a posh accent, he can say obvious common sense things that would see us working class oiks accused of bigotry at the drop of a hat. Again, does anyone deny this? Like, the UK has such an ingrained class culture that it really is down to what you look and sound like. Some of the things that Christopher Hitchens and Douglas Murray have said about Islam in a posh accent is worse than any of the shit the likes of Tommy Robinson ever came up with. And Tommy Robinson, they cannot stop putting him in prison. Like he's in and out of jail more often than fucking Peter... Oh, no, I was going to say Peter Sutcliffe, but fortunately he's never been let out. But he's in and out more than a fucking drunk old tramp. You know, the ones that spend every fucking weekend in the cells, sober up a bit, and then promptly piss themselves again on Monday and repeat the process for a week. They can't stop locking him up because he speaks like me. He's got a working class accent, and they just hear you and go, no, he must be scum. It literally is that. But like, seriously, Google Christopher Hitchens. Go on YouTube and type in the best of Christopher Hitchens. You'll just see him slamming people. They used to call it a hitch slap because he was so good at fucking pulling people's arguments apart. He was unapologetically aggressive at going after Islam, and they never went after him because he wore a nice suit and he had a nice posh accent. So Douglas Murray, he gets away with it, and his book's fucking brilliant. I would recommend that to anyone. It is a fantastic book. I always do my absolute best to be impartial on these things. My missus said I should set up one of those I will argue with anyone fucking stands on the street and just argue with people. Because I love arguing so much. I really do it. Put a lot of effort into trying to argue the opposite side of the coin. Any issue that I'm one side of, I do my best to learn the opposing positive arguments because I want to know what the daft cunt who I'm arguing with is going to say beforehand, and then I can fucking flay the silly bastard. Some twat bastard Guardianista, fuckhead. Owen Jones, I'd love to have an argument with him. It's good to read both sides of the argument. I think I could do as good a case against Donald Trump as I could do for Donald Trump, and that's the point. I try to really get into the weeds on these issues and learn both sides of the argument. And Douglas Murray's logic in this book is almost flawless. There's a few things I could disagree with him on if I was trying. But it's a great book and he makes some fucking good arguments that you just sit there going, what can you say to that? Like, if you said that to a politician, what would he say in response? So again, I recommend that. I'm happy to promote Douglas's writing. He's fucking great. So yeah, he can say anything and not get accused of being a bigot. The obvious takeaway from his book is simply this. You can be concerned about immigration without being prejudiced, obviously. You can be worried about Enlightenment values and secularism, things like freedom of speech, which doesn't exist in some of these countries that people are coming from. You're not allowed to... There's blasphemy laws in Afghanistan and Pakistan. You can't say, fuck the Quran, Muhammad was a pedo, I think it's all pure bullshit, and there is no God. You can't do that. You can do it in England, but you can't do it in fucking Iran. Not everywhere is the same. And what's it got to do with race? Again, any working class people know this better than anyone. Working class people are the least prejudiced because working class people, where the fuck do you think they ditch all of the immigrants? They ditch them in Middlesbrough. Remember that story on the BBC? Why does Middlesbrough have the most asylum seekers? There's the fucking proof. When we invaded Iraq, I remember my dad laughing. I came home from the war and I was like, all right, Dad, how was it? And he asked me about it and that. And I said, it wasn't terrible. And he said, give it 6 months. All the cunts will be living over here. And I laughed and thought, haha, cynical old cunt. He was fucking right. Because the posh twats that live in leafy shires in the home counties or in Cornwall, they don't want to see 50 Somalians in their fucking street, do they? So where do they send them? They send them to Middlesbrough. They send them to the north. Hence the grooming gangs all being active in the north. They send them up north because they don't want to have to deal with the fuckers. And then what happens? We hang out with the fuckers. We hang out with the cunts. We go to school with them. And we make friends with the kids. because we're the same age. It happened when I was in school. Asians and Africans moved in when I was a kid. A couple joined my class when I was in primary school, and there was 4 or 5 lads I remember joining the school when I was in high school, in secondary school. Africans, Asians, not loads, because it was the 90s at this point and it hadn't gone completely insane, but a decent amount of them. And you hang out and you play football together on the tennis courts and you get to know them and you go, oh, it's all right. It's got nothing to do with your race. It's got to do with like where you grow up and the people that surround you. So we fucking know and they don't. We hang out with them. The working classes aren't the racist ones. The working classes hang out with the fucking people that... Do you think Angela Merkel has Somalians and Afghans living in her street? I don't fucking think so. So you can be concerned about these things without being prejudiced. It's common sense. And there's another caption. I always try and put a few in. Load of fucking lunatics I found at a protest. I think it was in the Netherlands, because there's one of them holding a big sign there saying Sharia for the Netherlands. Islam will dominate the world. Freedom can go to hell. Like, you've got to be mental, haven't you, to want servitude. And the caption is, right, lads, give it 5 more minutes, then we can smoke some doobies and get the gay pride flags out. Yeah, because they're not going to be tolerant, liberal, LGBT++, Q, fucking feminist activists, are they? Owen fucking Jones, think about the people we're importing, you mad cunt. It says, indeed, if you are truly liberal, you should be deeply concerned about moving too many immigrants, many with extremely illiberal attitudes towards the LGBT community, or feminism, or secularism, too quickly into small nations in Europe. If it happens too quickly, and you dump all those people in small areas, like the infamous Molenbeek in Belgium, but I could name a dozen more throughout Europe. If anyone doesn't know, Molenbeek, that's the massive shithole in fucking Brussels where they just ditched all of the Muslim immigrants for years, and it basically became an Islamic state in Belgium, because every single person on a street would be from the same place and they couldn't speak the local language and they didn't integrate, which is what I've talked about earlier. And the guy who butchered over 100 kids at a pop concert in fucking Paris hid there for weeks and nobody grassed him up when he went home. Like, unbelievable. The way they stick together like that. These fucking fanatics. Like, if you lived on a street in a council estate in Middlesbrough or in the north of England somewhere and it turned out that one of your neighbours was fucking raping and eating kids, and then you looked out your window one day and he was there, you wouldn't go, fucking hell, we better keep this quiet, he's one of us, would you? Well, he is a neighbour. Fuck it. I'll help hide the cunt. It's madness to even suggest it. And it's because they have this ideology that overrides nationalism or patriotism or anything as trivial as nationality or neighbourliness. It's an all-consuming religious ideology. Like I've said before, a French Muslim, a German Muslim, a Spanish Muslim, a British Muslim and an American Muslim, they all have far more in common with each other than they do with their countrymen. An American Muslim wants to hang out with a British Muslim. He doesn't want to hang out with a fellow American. Well, a very devout one, obviously. The reason I have a nuanced opinion on this debate is because I knew plenty of Asian lads, Pakistani lads in Middlesbrough who were fucking sound and they're not interested because they grew up around the English kids. And then they get to, my mate Atif got to like 19 and his friends, and his mum and dad tried to get him to marry a fucking cousin or whatever. He told me they gave him a catalogue with all the different people and he could pick from. And he said, fuck off, I'm not doing it. And then he went on the piss in Thailand for 2 weeks. And, you know, like I said, it's common sense to working class people. They get it. It's these idiot fucking academics that don't. Where was I? Oh yeah. So moving to places like Molenbeek makes assimilation extremely unlikely. They're surrounded on all sides by people just like them and basically turn these areas into enclaves that are identical to their home nations. This is what I've talked about. Immigration worked as intended in the 1980s. Somalian families would move to England, be surrounded by welcoming British neighbours. As a result, they sired very well-adjusted British kids that quickly assimilated, liked the culture and thought and spoke just like their peers. They did. If you ditch one Somalian family in a council estate, the kids grow up surrounded by the local kids. And when that kid is 20, he has the same accent, the same hobbies, supports the same football team as the kids that surrounded him. Not so today. Then I finish up with, the world has gone truly mad when the left have decided that it is liberal to side with the most conservative people in the world. Demonstrable fact. That poll was on CNN. It was following from a Guardian one that was even worse. 52% of British Muslims in a poll said that homosexuality should be illegal. How the fuck is bringing millions of these people in liberal? How is that going to promote liberal values, tolerance, freedom of speech? Fucking freedom can go to hell. And we think importing them, these people, is liberal. You have to be a fucking maniac. You have to ram 50 square pegs through 50 round holes to think this shit. Yay, progressive. If the current leaders of Europe don't grasp the nettle now, then the far right will start winning elections again. And rest assured, they will take steps to deal with it. Steps I don't think anyone with a brain wants to see happen, so I suggest they get to work quickly. Done. 15,000 upvotes, 40 shares, fuck you, banhammer. Thanks very much to Quora. So, let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts. Is there anything in that piece that would be, what, jarring, reactionary, illiberal? Because I don't fucking see it. I'm not saying we don't have any immigration. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with people from any country on earth. What I'm saying is you need a process, a managed, sensible process, so people can assimilate properly and grow up to be British kids with British accents and British values instead of fucking this shit. Or even worse, remember this one from The Guardian? Zero tolerance. It was a Gallup poll, so perfectly reasonable source. They had telephone and face-to-face interviews with Muslims and non-Muslims, and they found that none of the 500 Muslims interviewed believed that homosexual acts were morally acceptable. None. Not a single one. And the people that read this fucking spunk rag newspaper, they think they're being liberal by inviting millions of them in. Square pegs and round fucking holes. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are. Maybe I've got a blind spot and I'm secretly a fucking Nazi. Cheers.